Today's matchup, KT Rolster, ROX Tigers. Spenu Sonic Boom, CJ Entis. Lotte Kokalkon, League of Legends, Champions Korea Spring 2016, Round 1.
Hello and welcome to Champions Spring here in Seoul, South Korea. I'm Montecristo. Joining me is Papa Smithy, and today's very special because we have our first barn burner of the season. It is going to be KT Rolster versus the ROX Tigers to start off the evening, and this is going to be a very interesting matchup.
In just so many ways, Montecristo. Battle of the undefeated teams, battle of the two teams that stylistically have played very differently. It'll be interesting to see if the high-pressure comp versus the wave-clear outscale, who's going to come out ahead.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've seen only 2 games from the Tigers, but they've been playing this composition with LeBlanc, Quinn, Kindred, and Alistair for some very high-pressure invades, very quick games in their 2-0 over CJ. KT, polar opposite.
Oh, boy.
Methodical, wave clear, like you said, 3 out of 4 games with Someday on Fiora, playing either a 4-1 split or a 1-3-1 split with Gangplank and Kassadin. So they've been going for 5 dragons, they've been playing it slow, they've been playing a wave manipulation game, and how are these styles going to match up is going to be the big question.
I mean, the average game time is probably about 10 minutes difference between these two teams, just because absolutely the ROX Tigers blew away their opposition, whereas, as you said, KT methodical but controlled. So I think immediately ensure that Someday's not in a position to outscale Smeb. And just on a simple level, it's Someday versus Smeb again. That's already pretty damn high.
Yeah, and the last time we saw this matchup was at the World
Exactly.
Championship, where Smeb really outclassed Someday. Someday had a very bad best-of-5, lost in the Darius to Fiora matchup to Smeb, but now he's the one who is prioritizing the Fiora. So what are we going to see tonight? We know that Quinn is often picked now in Korea as a Fiora counter. We know that both of Smeb's games this season are on Quinn. Is this going to be a matchup where Smeb plays better than Someday again?
I just don't think you're going to opt into the matchup. We're going to have the rankings, and it's not 2014, but Samsung is on the top very early in the season.
Yeah, and especially coming off of an upset victory over Longzhou last night, a bit of a surprise. ROX Tigers having only played a single series, and this is a hard week. They play KT tonight, and then on Saturday they will go up against Longzhou Gaming.
Longzhou looking for revenge, but what a first best of 3. This is, as you said, the most exciting game of the season so far. But this is a season where, you know, after the way the first kind of games have shooken out, there's probably 4 or 5 teams right now, maybe even 6 that are battling for playoffs. Doesn't feel like we have really concrete top and bottom teams just yet.
Not yet, and Spenu Sonic Boom lost their first series and only series to KT. And CJ Entis still looking for their first win after a brutal first week.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that was rough. But as we get into this game, let's take a look at our first team over on this side of the arena. It will be KT Rolster, who dropped, of course, Peekaboo during the off-season, replaced him with Ignar and Hachani, took out Nagne, brought Fly back from China, and Fly's been looking quite good.
Fly has been looking very impressive, although largely untested in his last few games. He's been playing a lot of Victor, a lot of wave. He's playing good Victor, but he's been focusing not on lane domination, but just on wave clear wars with, I believe, we've only seen Victor and Lux out of him.
And Kassadin.
Okay.
But that was not the wave clear champion, obviously. Lucian, really the pick for Arrow so far, and the way they like to play it, just hold their turrets as long as they can, wait for Fiora to get huge, and then split push their way to victory. But score has really been the story.
Absolutely.
Over 4 games, 88.9% kill contribution, 100% first blood participation for this guy. He has been a monster in the jungle. And he's going up against Peanut here for the ROX Tigers, who hasn't had anywhere near as much competitive experience.
Look, we don't award MVPs of the week, but Score was definitely the week 1 MVP in my book. And now we get two potentially aggressive junglers. Score has moved on to those AD carries in the jungle, bringing back the immortal Score days. And Peanut, he's had an aggressive streak ever since we saw him start on this stage.
Yeah, and double Kindred games. In fact, I would go so far as to say the only Kindreds that I have seen in the professional scene that I've been really inspired by have been played by Score and Peanut. So we could have a big Kindred battle here this evening.
Now you're making me disappointed there's no blind pick game. I want to see the blind pick top lane Fiora matchup, the Kindreds in the jungle. There's just so much to be excited about all across the map.
All right, there's Smeb in the top lane, looking smug. Smug Smeb is my favorite. Of course, he has a reason to be smug after their quarterfinal victory at the World Championship over KT, and largely that was built up by Smeb playing some excellent League of Legends against Someday, and what was one of the most premier top lane battles, and we get to see it again tonight. What a treat.
Yeah, both these top laners redefine expectations. Someday was always maybe the second best top laner in KT for a long spell. He was very young. He's grown into his role as a top lane carry. Smeb, his IM days long behind him. Both of these emerge as the top carry top laners in 2015.
Yeah, absolutely. So Score comfortable in this meta. Of course, as a former AD carry player switching to the jungle, champions like Kindred and Graves are certainly in his wheelhouse, coming quite naturally. We've seen 3 games of Elise, 1 game of Kindred out of Score so far. Coaches are in the booth right now, so we will be going into picks and bans very shortly.
Been watching his stream. Don't worry, he's been practicing the Graves, Monte Cristo. He can throw that one in there with the best of them. Will we see the control junglers or will we see the carries? Carry jungler versus carry jungler be a sight to see.
Would indeed. All right, into pick and ban already. Remember, guys, we are on 6.1, same as the LCS this week.
Oh, wow, Quinn, first ban straight out of the gates. Not going to willing to deal with that. Does that mean that a Fiora answer has to come? Because Fiora first pick, that could come through this draft.
I think absolutely that's what KT's drafting strategy is. Try and force a Fiora ban and maybe open up something else. Lulu taken away immediately, and there is going to be Kalista, so no first pick Kalista from KT, who definitely has been trending towards Lucian anyway, so that's not too surprising. While the Tigers do like to play Kalista, Prey was the only one who actually played a different champion between the Tigers' first 2 games. Started Kalista, moved to Tristana.
In general, Prey's move on to Kalista towards the second half of the summer season was really at the same time of his resurgence as a player. Honestly, towards the middle of the summer season, it looked like maybe his great 2015 start was going to come crumbling to an end, but reinvented himself and is looking once again like one of the top 80 carries in Korea.
Definitely, and it's been about his solo queue performance too, but
Sure.
consistently in the top 5 of Korean solo queue, so he has been really doing well there. Corki going to be banned, actually, by the ROX Tigers. A pick we've seen with rising priority. And with 280 carries banned, what does KT do? Are they going to just take away the Lucian and try and put Prey on a different style of carry? Or are we going to see the Fiora, which remains available for play?
A lot of powerful picks available. The only 200% contested picks so far have been Ryze and Gangplank. Both are banned. We've talked about the Fiora. Someday 3-0 undefeated on that champion, but where will the priority come? Kindred's available too.
Kindred is available, but again, Score only 1 game on that. So I would say with the way the bans have gone in that Corki and Kalista band, I think Lucian may show up, but the Lissandra here would be certainly a bit of a change for KT.
Lissandra has been the matchup that KT has been facing. It's often been their Fiora versus enemy Lissandra. They show the Lissandra, and wow! That is a very quick lock-in of Poppy. And with the Alistar, support Poppy's already completely off the menu.
Yeah, top or jungle are the options left for Poppy. Probably going to be a top lane Poppy, which we have seen more frequently in general. Score, considering this Kindred now, or the Graves, that champion that we've seen coming into Korea after thoroughly dominating the first week of play in China.
I really like the Alistar pickup from the side of the ROX Tigers. Think about KT's game plan. It's been about outscaling the top and just wave clear wars in the mid. One of the best champions to stop wave clear wars is Alistar. From level 6, can tank that turret for the full duration of the ultimate. So to break a siege, to break passive wave clearing with all his engage options, Alistar rightly top of the priority for supports.
Yeah, certainly true. So Kindred and Morgana.
Oh boy, Flyer's been talking about the mid lane Rammus. We're not going to see it, but I like the hover nonetheless.
So will be Kindred Morgana as an answer perhaps to some of this CC coming through from Poppy and Alistair.
I'm not willing to discount the possibility of Morgana mid. If you think about Fly's playstyle, it's been about wave clear.
True.
Doinby in the LPL loves to play Morgana mid, then roam with his aggressive jungler. Kindred's a jungler who can be empowered by a roaming Morgana, so it's definitely an outside possibility, but still one nonetheless for Fly.
And interesting that we see an Ezreal here. Ezreal has not been scaling well, but if you think about the way KT plays, a scaled blue Ezreal in the late game is terrifying. So if
it's not just a blue Ezreal, it's Prey.
It's Prey.
If you've been
the
on
Ezreal
Reddit
player.
and seen some of his plays, he's always been an excellent Ezreal. That one highlight clip where he basically cancels every auto attack animation was out of this world.
Yeah, he's been playing a lot in solo queue to be sure. Always the outside shot that it could be Kuro taking that in the mid lane. And Peanut going on the Nidalee, not a surprise. Peanut, a player who likes these more aggressive jungle pickups.
6.1, Runic Echoes now in the game. Nidalee's jungle clear is just unbelievably fast. It was always blistering, but it's even got faster with the new jungle item.
I really like this. So KT hovering Tahm Kench and Lux right now, two champions that play very far back, but it looks like they're going for a protect the double AD carry composition, which given the skirmishing nature of the Tigers and how effectively they have used Kindred, it does present an interesting conundrum in terms of the defensive style of play. KT just looking to outlast some of these fast skirmishes against the Tigers, and we are going to see that TF pick come in last.
Still definitely a pressure game from both sides, I guess, at this point. Twisted Fate doesn't let up the pressure either. Waiting to see what summoners he goes with. Teleport is a possibility. We saw Flash teleport Twisted Fate yesterday, but could also just go for the mass mobility with double mobility summoners. Really spicy draft coming through from both sides.
Yeah, I like what we're seeing from both teams. The Lucian-Lux combo from KT. Of course, the long-range catch from Lux does set up good ultimates from both Lux and Lucian. To finish off the kill, they have two long-range roots in Morgana and Lux to actually set up snipes, which is pretty exciting.
The top lane matchup. Tahm Kench versus Poppy. When we heard it was Someday versus Smebs, not what we expected, but it's good to see Poppy specifically rise in popularity because this pick has so much potential. Now already undefeated in Champions over 2 games.
Yeah, and we've seen how strong it can be in China and Europe so far. Definitely made a mark there in terms of the team fight control that you have with that pick and, you know, dealing with some of the mobility of the enemy. You take that Lucian and you can stop a lot of his dashes, try and make him a little bit more vulnerable there. Exciting stuff. I'm really looking forward to this game. Both teams bringing something different to the table this game. And KT looking to outlast in a different way in team fights. So let's get into game 1. KT versus the ROX Tigers. Nope, nearly got the music right that time. It'll happen someday.
Wants to rule the world. That's what we've got here today.
So, our first match of today is a doozy, as two of the top teams this season are going head-to-head, both so far undefeated. KT taking out Spenu and Africa, and the Tigers taking out CJ. So neither team with what we would consider a top 4, top 5 opponent yet. And this is going to tell us a lot because those early wins, a little bit easy for these guys.
I could pick a featured matchup for this series. It'd be jungle. It'd be all about Score versus Peanut, both very aggressive junglers. Score specifically this season has pivoted towards more aggression with the Twisted Fate last pick. Twisted Fate's always a champion that from 6 means that whenever a Peanut goes to invade, you're going to expect Twisted Fate to be so much faster at rotating between the Ghost, Flash, and Ultimate onto any sort of counter jungling onto Score. And just from a different perspective, Score, of course, front and center on the OGN Spring 2016 opening video. He, of course, was around for the OGN Invitational in January 2012 when he was playing on this very stage. Peanut was a month away from his 14th birthday.
Very young, very different
14.
times.
Wow,
13-year-old Peanut. Maybe watching these games that Score was playing at the time.
As an AD carry, but we'll sweep that one under the rug.
He was great AD carry.
He was. The immortal Score, we'll never forget. And now he gets to play jungle AD carries like Kindred.
I love it. I love that we've gotten to this point in League of Legends where we can have Score playing those AD carries out of the jungle. Lane swap coming up here for KT as they send their duo to the top side. Both junglers starting on the weak side of the map. Tahm Kench someday actually falling back a little bit into the lane.
Not surprised to see most teams trying to lane swap onto Poppy. Poppy, of course, with her rework, does have some semblance of wave clear in her Q, but obviously very short-ranged and risky. So the evolving matchup between Poppy and Tahm Kench, that's not one I'm confident on, but it'll be exciting to track later on. But in the early game, is it Shani?
Coming for the roam, gets the bind onto Kuro. Just a little bit of a trade right there. Gold card goes the other way.
He was hurried. If he had had more time, if there wasn't that ward to spot him out, it could have been a potential kill if Fly could have moved forward just as the laning phase had developed.
Yeah, level 2, maybe a bit of a stretch, considering there's no offensive summoners, but certainly could have gotten a little bit more damage down there. And in any case, Kuro forced to pop a potion early. Fly going with the cleanse, and Kuro under no pressure here. Will go ahead and take, like you said, Papa Smithy, those 2 summoners in terms of Ghost and Flash for the mobility, but no teleport, interestingly enough.
Very standard lane swap play coming through, the jungle follow ending, and the 3 or 4 man pushes respectively coming to the top side, actually mirrored across the map. I guess slight advantage to score in that he's actually picking up the marked Scuttle Crab. Nice when that works out in your path.
Especially when you start on the opposite side of the jungle, then you're nice and set up there at 3 minutes. Couldn't have worked out better. The RNG is strong with score this game. And now...
in China too.
Yeah, in China too. Doing very well. Fun team to watch. I really like MLXG.
He is a solid Chinese jungler, for sure. An exciting talent. His turrets will come down.
Interesting. So they actually shared the gold on that side of the map. Everyone's sticking around and not waiting for the delay here to deny some of these minions. KT, ward will expire in the lane. They will give all the gold to Mr. Someday on that Tahm Kench. He will waddle backwards and start to deal with some of these other minions while ROX Tigers faster on the swap back. But that means Tahm Kench probably should be getting out of there. He's going to ward outside of the Tri-Brush just to make sure he doesn't have any unpleasant surprises from Peanuts in Italy.
Yeah, we'll wait to see where defensive vision opens up. As you can see, very aggressive vision for the ROX Tigers onto the bottom side of the red side jungle for KT. Smeb is picking up a wave. We're expecting eventually the wave clear was his Fly.
Yeah, gonna get gold carded, cleanses immediately upon landing. Does light binding a little bit in defense, making sure that there is no follow-up, but has to burn a summoner as Gorilla with a nice mid lane roam. Tigers, 3 people down on the bottom side now. Peanut making moves to try and defend this turret, get some vision down. Score already here. Hachani going to pink ward and then find Peanut as he pops over the wall. Takes out the ward in the river and then backs off. So not too much gained right there, just more vision coming in from KT as they look to get a turret advantage a little bit faster. Prey left by himself with a tier in the top side.
Allows Prey to scale up in a 2v2 lane matchup. Obviously, Ezreal will have a hard time trading or being able to cull minion waves against Lucian. Lucian has so much more minion wave control, so giving Ezreal solo experience, honestly. We've seen a lot of mid lane Ezreal. We're effectively getting mid lane experience onto Ezreal in the top side of the map for now.
Yeah, and that'll be interesting in a few minutes, but that may mean that they are going to sacrifice this turret. Poppy getting a lot of minions, though, from that wave. Wave slowly pushing back in Ezreal's favor right now towards his tier 2, looks like. So Tahm Kench denied just a little bit, but the tower pressure coming through from KT may find itself value in terms of taking that objective quickly. ROX looks like they're happy to play a very defensive game early. This is exactly the opposite of what we saw in the Tigers first series.
Worth knowing that ROX Kuro has just pinged level 6, so we're waiting to see if anybody's caught in rotation. Sounds like a sequel to Lost in Translation. But we'll see if the Twisted Fate, first Destiny, we always talk about it.
Prey gonna have to go on the run right here. Score gonna get in behind him. He's gonna dash forward, and how much damage is he gonna do? Prey takes about 50% of his HP. Score has to flash out.
No mana on Kuro.
As Kuro comes in, TP now going to be the follow-up here from Smeb. Someday is not gonna be doing much. Score actually doesn't get stunned right there by Smeb. He's still on the run. Tahm Kench gonna eat him, but there are 4 people here, and this could be 2 dead members of KT. Fly comes through, going to laser his way, but Score will be the first to fall with that first blood, and Someday follows soon thereafter. Fly just can't get there in time. Fly, now on the run himself, does have to flash up into his own jungle. That could have been finished sooner if Smeb had actually been able to land the heroic charge stun into the wall.
Just a really nice rotation coming through from the ROX Tigers to win it up. They just had the ability to get more members on the top side of the map. There was no way for Arrow to make that cross-map rotation. It was actually a clutch flash devour from Tom Kench to pop the gold card in mid-flight. But still overall, they lose those 2 members.
Yeah, nice patience there by Someday, but they still end up falling. Now a 1,500 gold lead accrued by the ROX Tigers. Let's see what they can do with it. It's nice to have that advantage, though, especially with a couple of assists on this Ezreal early.
Gorilla's not interested in any swiftness boots. He needs maximum speed right now. He actually rushes Mobies, despite the fact that has been certainly going out of favor among supports worldwide.
Yeah, it's true, but there's also not really a lot of slows coming in here from KT, so those boots do have a little bit less value.
I mean, at the end of the day, Lux has a slow. Tom Kench, I believe the W slow.
The W does
exists.
slow.
Score has a slow as well.
Compared to the threat of the real threat here is the double binding, which is going to be the long-range form of CC.
I actually like to think about it in a different way. This is about pressure for the ROX Tigers. They have the Twisted Fate. Now they have Alistair going to be able to make the first move. Gorilla, famously, is always the first person to rotate among enemy supports. He's always in the right spot.
There we go again. He's going to punt Score back out of his own jungle. Prey is there, and into the arms of Peanut goes Score, and that will be another kill. Score with 2 deaths already this game before 8 minutes. Not having a lot of luck. And here comes Smeb. They want Fly. Spear is going to miss. There's the knockback. Gets him up in the air, and he's going to get charged into the turret. Smeb is going to trade 1 for 1 and actually gets 2 kills in the end with the help of the laser. What a turnaround there from Fly. It looked like such a good play. They hammered him into the turret and then followed up with the E, but he still managed to get the laser off.
I mean, everything about the volleyball play was great. They set, they spiked, but it was all under the turret. The return damage from Fly, who had his cleanse available again, was on point. So KT win that little trade, although it looks like ROX Tigers, with the pressure, is going to be able to pick up a dragon.
Yeah, they will, but that's going to swing the gold back to KT just a smidge.
A smidgen.
A smidgen. It's still a lead for the Tigers and that early dragon. Let's take a look at this again.
Just think about it in terms of volleyball. Watch this set, up in the air, spikes down into the turret. It was really nice, but the cleanse being back up, maybe that was a missed time, because that was what meant that they could get all that return damage.
The real mistake there was that they used the heroic charge and the gold card at the same time instead of waiting for the cleanse to come out. If they knew it was up, you hit 1 stun, wait for the cleanse, get the second one out, and then you can actually make that play. So a little bit of communication error there from the ROX Tigers means that they're not going to be able to do a whole lot with that, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, you make a bad 2-for-1 trade, but you still get a dragon out of it, so you're not going to be complaining.
The pressure game is so seesaw between these two teams. We were talking just a moment ago about what Gorilla can do with Moby Boots. Picked off another gank, then we just saw Hachani rotating through mid the moment that Fly finished the Frost Queen's claim. There's so much pressure because of the lane swap game. We've seen a fairly isolated Lux versus Twisted Fate matchup. But when these supports, globals, etc. start rotating through mid, it gets nice and spicy.
Yeah, it does. And when it comes to farm, too, the only big differential here is going to be Arrow with a massive CS lead over Prey, who has been a little bit more on the roam or fighting instead of purely farming like Arrow's Lucian has been mostly in the bottom side.
Yeah, we mentioned Arrow was the only person who couldn't rotate into that fight that got the ROX Tigers 2 kills on the top, but as a result, picked up so much more CS, not needing to respond. When you're looking at 3 assists versus 29 CS, I believe that's still in the advantage of Arrow. But if the ROX Tigers can use the map pressure they generated with those kills, with the deep wars they got out of it, then it might all be worth it.
Yeah, certainly could be. But right now, vision dominance asserted by KT, who have all 5 pink wards down on the map. Just a solitary pink here for the Tigers, which means it's going to be very difficult for them to make plays around this Twisted Fate. KT sets their sights on the Rift Herald, sends 4 members up there. Tom Kench already on that side of the Rift, and gonna get it reset just a little bit, unfortunate.
People always say it takes so long and it's so punishing to kill the Rift Herald. I'm not sure if it's worth it. It takes even longer in this situation. Lucian falls low, will have to back as well. People always, it feels like the jury's still out on Rift Herald, at least in its 6.1 iteration.
I mean, there was nothing to take on the top side of the map in the enemy jungle, and now Lucian's going to be able to get back in time to catch this wave with minimal damage to his turret. So honestly, I think that's just fine for the KT Rolster players. Not really too much that they're going to lose. Arrow will pick up that entire wave and be able to push out that much quicker.
In the late game, that's kind of where I see issues growing for the ROX Tigers. Specifically, you're talking about Twisted Fate and Italy navigating team fights against the Tahm Kench Devour. We've already seen that used very expertly. Obviously, Blue Ezra is going to be able to open up space, but I think it's going to have to be a macro game from the ROX Tigers to really take it down, because it doesn't look like 5v5 team fights, barring some incredible mid-game snowball, are going to go their way.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And just the way that KT can play around vision with catches with Morgana and Lux means that it's going to be very dangerous for ROX to face check objectives. Probably means they're going to have to burn TF ult if there's ever a Baron bait from KT. And that's not how you want to be using that ability, especially when you don't have TP.
Small solace is that on 6.1, warding trinkets, warding totems have been buffed. We will see more yellow trinkets. That means more permanent vision is usually available. We're going to see at least probably one more yellow trinket to go along with. Oh, interesting. I was actually going to didn't notice this. Peanut didn't go for the Tracker's Knife, has actually gone for the much more snowball choice. Makes sense given these 3-0-1, but that means we're going to need more yellow trinkets to be able to have as much vision as KT is going to be able to put out in the late game.
Yeah, Achana here, slowed up as he wanders down to help out Arrow. The bottom side, Rift Herald buff still moving. That's going to be mostly cleared out by a True Shot Barrage. Kuro getting some damage down. Here's Someday, just as a bit of a threat right here. Does force the Ghost from Kuro.
Didn't have enough vision around the mid lane to know for sure how many people are rotating. So just pop Ghost, just as a preemptive measure. Has Distortion already, so summon a spell cooldown reduction from the Boots of Lucidity and the Distortion means that this is going to be very mobile Kuro.
Yes, well, here we go. Everyone collapsing, and there's a nice poke, and that's the combo right there. Gorilla has to use Unbreakable Will. Now they're going to TP in and cancel it immediately. Smart not to follow through with that. Poppy did not want to come in there.
It's not late game Poppy. Not enough tank items for quite that level of engage.
Yeah, definitely. And so we saw some pressure here. The Tigers, mostly full HP bars. In fact, pretty much entirely now that Gorilla's popped that potion. So shouldn't be too much more pressure from KT. Doubt they are going to get a whole hell of a lot. Too much wave clear right now, and we do see the rush here onto the Iceborne Gauntlet from Praise Ezreal, looking for the slow and some more AoE damage, at least on his Qs.
And Kuro has just gone full mobility Twisted Fate. I already mentioned the early Lucidity bits, but actually he's gone for the Frost Queen's Claim. No sight of a Sheen at 15 minutes for Twisted Fate. Feels like the old Twin Shadows Twisted Fate days where you would just prioritize movement speed, go for Ignite, and get that second gold card, and he'll be getting those repeated gold cards. He's going to need a lot of damage assist from his teammates because low damage Twisted Fate this early in the game.
Yeah, does have the Distortion enchantment though, so can do a few more chase downs, the lower cooldown on his summoners.
I mean, he's got all the chase. He's got the chase Twisted Fate build. Yeah.
They have to make it work. Now they can, of course, huge amounts of chase on this team, but they're going to come in right now. Someday just shows up with a TP. A tongue lash Gorilla.
His ult's still down, so has to be more defensive than you expect an Alistair played.
And that means Dragon now contested successfully by KT Rolster. They get number one, and they still find themselves at about that same 1,000 gold deficit.
Right, both these teams having similar comps as Someday backs away. I think we're still unified in saying that KT do have that outscale potential with the Tahm Kench Morgana, stopping any pick potential in the late game. So it has kind of reverted back to old win conditions. It's still a pressure game required from the ROX Tigers to win, and KT looking to opt into the late game. ROX started off really fast, had those 4 kills, had the early map control, but now that KT have picked up that all-important first dragon, showing they have those stats for the late game, it feels like the ROX Tigers, they're the ones with the effective timer, so they need to start making assertive moves, because now all their vision is defensive, their map control has subsided, and KT go back to Lux wave clearing and feel great about it.
Yeah, they can. More moves need to be made. With this Twisted Fate right now, Kuro simply clearing waves in the bottom side to keep that turret up. Johnny here with the ultimate, though, is going to tag Gorilla straight into the binding. They're going to get the ultimate out once again. Unbreakable Will, they're going to try and burst him. That doesn't work. KT, and someday is just going to get knocked right back into the turret. They finally are able to take out Gorilla, but it comes at the cost of Someday. Now Kuro joining his team in the mid lane, and there's Hachani getting very, very low. Kindred ult is going to be popped, and Arrow tries to stick in. He's going to be the next to fall, though. Fly has to use his cleanse, and he dies too, and a mega dive from ROX. Kuro can't quite clean up score, but that is nearly an ace off of a very poor commitment by KT Rolster.
And crucially, that was KT just gifting an ace effectively over to the ROX Tigers. That was aggression started by KT. Just tried to force the pick onto Gorilla. They didn't have enough stacks of the Tongue Lash. They couldn't devour him and get him away. And once Gorilla saw the opening, flash headbutt into the turret, and the ROX Tigers just ran route after that.
Yeah, made it very easy. Again, just stacking that CC. So that they had the opportunity to use the one unbreakable will to break it.
You always question shot calling where Focus the Alistair was the clear call. They wanted to kill him before anyone came through. But crucially, Gorilla here, he ensures it's a one-for-one trade between the top laner and the support. And then Smep, in the right place at the right time, was a good flash on the heroic charge. But from this point, they have so much mobility. It's the Catch Twisted Fate build. It's Blue Ezreal. You're never getting away, whatever your health value is.
Well, it's not only Blue Ezreal, it is movement speed, Twisted Fate. It's Nidalee. That is not a composition you can overextend and hope to get away with if they start piling on the kills. They are going to chase you down in the end, and that's exactly what happened. Very bizarre team fight from KT.
First shot calling mistake, or misstep, I would say, from KT in 4 games on this stage. This is their 5th game. That was a really clear call to kill the Alistair, who they knew his ult was up on. Very questionable.
Say the least. Prey actually has to use his flash right there as Fly lets loose a light binding. And now KT lost control of the vision. They're now hunting for it around the Baron, making sure they can't do that objective. They still have that late game edge, but with 5K in the hole and no mid turrets outside of their base. And Peanut is caught and destroyed. Maybe. We'll see. The ult is going to proc at the end, so Hachani does pick it up with the second part of his ult damage.
Does force a flash out of score. That's obviously a hollow victory. I want to touch back on the vision game. To me, it's all about permanent vision. It's all specifically about pink wards, and the ROX Tigers pink wards are completely absent. They only have 1 on the map. They've just pushed up onto the enemy red buff. There's still good defensive pinks around the blue side jungle. It's all about translating mid-game skirmishes, mid-game team fights into permanent vision, whether it is those trinket wards or the pink wards. And for now, they've been slow to cement their advantage with vision.
Yeah, they've been very slow. Even in the early game, we saw KT 5 pinks on the board, only 1 for the ROX Tigers at that point in time. So they have been lagging behind. Now it's cleared out. There's only 1 pink for either team right now.
Pink wards are just overpowered, Monte Cristo. They're so cheap.
They are very good.
They're so powerful. They must be contested. It feels like fights between pink ward vision specifically are what wins you games. It's what I've seen so far doing VOD review of the games we've had so far this season. So I think pink wards just really need to be first and foremost you're practicing in scrims and outside the game, because if you keep that vision line up, it's so hard to come back.
One of the things that I'm really surprised that Riot didn't change about pink wards with the vision changes is the 5-hit HP, because it sounds like a stupid thing to talk about, but you consider that that's an extra, usually for most champions, 2+ seconds that it takes to clear out a ward, and that could be an eternity in a game where 1 CC ability can catch you out.
I think it's nice that there's such a big difference between, you know, the once overpowered, now kind of inline blue trinket 1 hit to the 5 hits for pink wards. Of course, they're visible. But there should be titanic battles over them, because if you can double pink around your mid lane in the first, say, 5 to 6 minutes of the game, you're basically impervious to any sort of gank. You can overextend. Vision around mid lane in the start of the game, then obviously more aggressively onto buffs, is what wins you games, what cements advantages that you get from the mechanical outplays that we all love to see.
That we do. Score actually does get that buff, I think, in the end, or the grump in the end. We do see Kuro opting for the Zhonya's Hourglass second, so ROX really committing to some team fighting plays here with this Alistair and with the invincible Twisted Fate. Have a lot of dive opportunities available.
I just don't like it though. You're opting into diving Tahm Kench, Kalista, sorry, Tahm Kench, Kindred, Morgana.
Yep.
it seems really low value. Why not go for the split push that so far the pressure game has been what you picked for? It feels like a Lich Bane at this point. I just don't know what they're opting into with Frost Queen's claimed Zonias against the lineup you're facing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think that the only option here for KT is to answer a split push with a Tom Kench. Gorilla caught out once again, but this time he may actually die through his ultimate, and yes, he will score. Finishes him off. And the rest of the Tigers now looping back around, trying to defend their mid turret. Peanut trying to get behind, but there's not a whole lot of HP left.
Second Dragon, for giving up a lot of pressure in mid, I don't really like it, to be honest. It feels like Second Dragon stats are fairly irrelevant. Now these games have been going late, so maybe the stacking will matter. It's Prey.
Prey almost dies, and yes, he will. Lux Fly grabs it as Prey tries to use his heal. Didn't have his flash available to get out, but a nice CC from KT Rolster, and they continue moving forward just briefly. Now they fall back to their side of the map. We have the respawn from Gorilla.
It's all the flow-on effect of Gorilla giving up his life for the Second Dragon. You saw the deep pink ward going down. It's going to be cleared instantly, but I feel like map pressure and aggressive wards versus Second Dragon, it's almost a no contest.
Yeah, can't argue with that. Especially if it had been the Second Dragon earlier in the game, or if there weren't any dragons for KT yet. But at this point, going for Second Drag, 22, 21 minutes in, you're still looking at a long scaling time at that point. So not really worth it. Peanut, too, going Rod of Ages into QSS. QSS now complete for Prey, so he will not fall to those same long-range bindings again.
But all we can say is that if you look down the list and see double QSS and a Zonia's Rush, seems like ROX won a team fight.
Yeah, absolutely, but they're not finding those opportunities ever since they picked up the big kills. Now KT pushing this turret down is going to get a Poppy right next to him. Smeb wants to take out the rest of this minion wave and prevent the turret from falling, which he will easily do. The Tigers still firmly committing to controlling Baron vision right here and forcing KT to play around that.
Smeb's actually changed back to a warding totem. There was no warding totems among the 10 players a few minutes ago. He's gone back to the warding totem. I'm expecting at least one per team. Depending on how the top lane is playing, I think that might be the champion to pick it up, but feels like warding totems are certainly here to stay after the little adjustments in vision in 6.1.
Yeah, definitely a big improvement and equalization among some of these trinket items.
We might even see, early blue trinket into warding trinket change, or multiple changes. Maybe there will be more gameplay around when to change from a blue trinket to a yellow and vice versa over the course of games as they evolve.
I'm glad we actually have more trinket parity now.
I'm just happy it's not a min-max, right? This is what everyone does. Everyone has 4 reds and 1 yellow, or 1 blue, or 4 blues as it was in the previous patch. I like it when it's situational, where we're a siege team, this is our win condition, we'll get this type of trinket, rather than just, this is the best one.
It always was interesting to me. I think there was more variance in potential trinket usage even before this season. That wasn't really explored by a lot of the professional teams. But it's nice to see that the balance change is actually forcing that issue.
I mean, in the best case scenario, it's going to be rock, paper, scissors, right?
It is, definitely.
This beats this. When they have sweepers, I want to go for the blue trinket to get spot vision. That's when it's at its most interesting. And sometimes in 50, 60-minute games, you see the flow-on effect. We're seeing a bit of information about what a late-game scrap between these two looks like. And for now, Someday, he's pretty happy with it.
Holding his own. We have Poppy here, presumably moving into an Iceborne. Peanut,
Peanut here too.
Now on the side, he's going to land the spear, but not going to follow that one up. They didn't see any other members of KT on the map, and they just don't have the vision in that side of the jungle to commit to that play.
It's also 2-stack Rod of Ages, QSS, Peanuts.
Uh-oh, now they may.
Damage.
Someday going to come around, and he's going to get stunned by Kuro on the port. Knocked back by Poppy right now. Someday watches as he gets hammered in the face, and Achani there for some reason. Interesting choice. Definitely not where you want to be on the map right there. Easy kill.
Blast from the past, a Hachani moment.
They knew he was coming because they had TF ult tracking his movements, so you're not going to surprise anybody. You know you're alone. Final spark used to clear out the wave for the most part. Culling will pick up the rest of it. They're still going to face tank this.
Smeb doesn't take damage, just to be clear.
Yes. At this point, especially that physical damage, not likely. Sunfire Cape and Dead Man's Plate.
Smeb's W, the charge ability that of course blocks the movement position effects, also gives bonus armor and magic resist, so it gets double scaling on a lot of those defensive stats. Not 100%, but obviously improved scaling. Means it's just pretty damn tanky.
Well, there's your Lich Bane, Papa Smithy. On to Kuro at long last. It's been a while, but it has been a slight seesaw here when it comes to the gold lead. Tigers now back at the 5K they earned after their last big fight win in the mid lane. KT closed it. Now back once again to a bit of a deficit.
Both teams have made some missteps. Not trademark of their early games, but of course we're so early into the season. The question just becomes that when you've already opted into QSS as this Nidalee, does the siege game from the ROX Tigers against very strong wave clear from KT mean that they'll ever actually be able to pick up these turrets? They obviously want to break the base, and it just looks like, given some of their more defensive itemization, it's going to be tough for them to actually push forward a game-winning advantage.
All right, Someday and Smeb still scrapping on the bottom side. Both TPs up and available, so each team not really willing to commit to much right here. Twin Shadows follows in. Someday, like he's just slowly taking damage and spitting Smeb around. Kuro now finding a use for his Lich Bane as he split pushes in top. Everyone else from the Tigers moving over to take another tier 2. It is now 6 turrets, all turrets outside the base destroyed for ROX. Meanwhile, KT is still sitting at 2. If they can take out the rest of their towers, they will be pretty much even in gold, but this is a Baron attempt here.
Got double pink wards around this area. KT aren't responding. It's down to 5,000 health already.
Yeah, they're just going to get it right here. Uncontested. KT late to this fight. They're going to come in, but nothing really going to happen. Score. Face check Smeb, and here we go. Kuro just going to show up with a gold card, and he's going to get saved by Someday. Someday slammed into the wall now by Poppy. Gorilla low. He's going to engage with his ultimate fly, also falling quite behind, and there's another kill coming in. Hachani taken out. Support for support this far in the fight. Arrow trying to kite out Smeb. KT fly still alive, and now in the end they trade just 1 for 1. Somehow we see Score get out of that.
Yeah, Kuro really low on mana, had to stop with the CC, but this is immense turret damage already. Get this inhibit if they want to force, but no, with the respawns, they back away.
I mean, Final Spark still available. Not going to want to stick around while Lux can get a big ult on you. Kuro low on the mana, so they are just going to change over to that dragon, continue stacking up. 3 now will be secured, and late Final Spark.
We should return to the jungle matchup that I featured in the early game. You have to feel it. The one game we've seen where Score has fallen behind, it kind of reminds me of last season where Peekaboo didn't successfully get his roams off, or the Peekaboo Score synergy and aggressive plays and map domination fell apart. So did KT. This season, it's been all about Score just as a solo, and he's fallen behind, and Chani's got caught a bit. And KT's map control has gone from one of their strong suits, and that's allowed them to play these game-delaying, wave-clear matches. Now that Peanuts had the ascendancy in the 1v1 jungle matchup, KT, vision game specifically, kind of fallen apart.
I don't know. I think KT definitely has been defensively warding well throughout this entire series. When it gets into the river, yes, they made mistakes around that Baron, but for the most part, they've had more wards, more pink wards, everything out on the map, and they've mostly seen everything that the Tigers are doing. But sometimes doesn't help with Twisted Fate in the game and how much that champion could do to catch people off guard.
Just punishes rotations of any kind from the enemy. If you're just off by a moment, if the vision is slightly in the advantage of the enemy. Twisted Fate, global ultimates, being able to respond almost instantly. It's always been something that's been really difficult to play around for even the best teams.
So Baron buff charging down mid lane once again with the Tigers. They're trying to set up a split push right now, Poppy, but it's going to be really hard to actually finish off this inhib in the allotted time unless they totally commit to it. KT is still going to be very powerful. We haven't really seen that big 5v5 yet from KT where they can fully utilize all of their abilities to save their carries. And there we go. Prey just going to work right through it. The Lichbane and the Iceborne Gauntlet doing work.
Yeah, they're going to back away. They got successfully the objective. Smeb, Split pushing with fairly impunity. He is eaten, though.
And they spit back out, but Smeb just going to respond with a heroic charge right back to his allies. He heroically retreats.
Yeah, that's where that name falls apart a little bit. Kuro is smart, holding onto the gold card basically as a zone, saying, okay, you've got the Devour onto Poppy, but no one else can focus fire, denying any sort of single target focus onto the tanky Smeb, and they just get away with half HP on the top turret, and of course the mid inhibitor down.
Yeah, so win right there before the Baron falls. Strategic withdrawal there from the ROX Tiger.
I believe it's called a tactical retreat.
Tactical retreat. All right, so Someday now perfectly capable of tanking up some of these members. Smeb now spit back out. Here comes Gorilla with a big engage. Kuro going to be following up. Gold card is going to move through the enemy team. Arrow trying to kite this out. Big ult from Fly, but it's just not going to do enough damage. They're working on Someday right now. He's got a lot of gray health. Arrow starting to turn this fight around. Fly right behind him. Here comes the charge of Arrow. There's the Spooky Ghost going to get the slow. Prey has to pop over the wall with the Arcane Shift. But when the dust settles, 3 for 1 and maybe more. Arrow is here. Prey has to use his heal to escape. Ardent Blaze not going to find a target, and Prey will just barely escape this fight. Arrow showing the power of all that protection he has with this composition, managing to make the play, score the only one to die from KT.
You can see during this fight, they get a really nice pick on the score. He's completely deleted, but watch Arrow in the back line. KT have so much defensive shielding that means that Arrow free hits this whole fight. No one goes anywhere near him, and a free farmed Lucian just deals with everyone else. There isn't the follow-up CC, and there is the protection of the likes of the Black Shield and the Devour. That means if Arrow can free hit, he is empowered to do so much more damage than Prey.
Well, ROX also, when it comes to their engage, once that Pulve combo is down, there's no other threat.
Heroic charge and Pulve down, they have
and
literally
the engage
nothing else.
Too, because when Kuro came in, comes in with the gold card, Pulve is down, Smeb is nowhere close to him, so Arrow is perfectly free to walk up right there and deal as much auto damage as possible. So great timing from Arrow, knowing when he can go into that engagement. Have a little bit more luxury in terms of how he team fights now that his QSS is available.
He's got the damage triumvirate of this season and the QSS, 40% CDR, and a lot of right-click auto attack damage. Probably going to be a Last Whisper item coming out from the last. Of course, Last Whisper saw, I believe, a slight buff in this patch in terms of percentage armor penetration. I might be misspeaking on that, but I believe there was about 5% buff. All
to
matters.
Bonus armor, though, still. So.
Still to bonus armor, of course,
yeah.
but a lot of bonus armor on the side of Smeb in particular.
All right, Smeb back, leading the charge right here. Throws a buckler at Arrow's face. Shield bash. Throwing shields at people, not fun.
Does it quite frequently. The push is still on. Smeb's trying to buy space. They just want this inhibitor to
Prey
get out.
doing a really good job, but he's going to miss the true shot barrage. Smeb now finds score, smashes him into the wall, and Peanut has to use his QSS to get out of the bind. Now Smeb is going to be falling a little bit low. Meanwhile, Someday is soloing Kuro and not going to get the kill as both summoners burn from the Twisted Fate. They want to burn this inhibitor and run, but they are low, and Kuro is in a bad position. Can KT save this? Just a couple more hits left, but both teams very poke heavy around this objective. Question is, Tom Kench gonna come through with the Abyssal Voyage. Peanut has to flash now, and here's Gorilla. He is a tasty target for Someday, who is black shielded. And here we go, Gorilla. They're just waiting on that ultimate to end, and they burn him down one more time. KT making a strong defense score. Not enough to finish him off with a true shot barrage. Lives with about 200 health.
But crucially, Someday was able to outdeal Kuro in a spare lane. Even though Kuro had both summoners available, only just was able to get away. And now ROX turns onto the Baron.
Yeah, they are. Here we go. Going to go for another Baron this game. Tom Kench nearly there, but no one else from KT. Free Baron again for the Tigers. KT just doing a very poor job of sensing when ROX can actually go for that objective. Meanwhile, KT may be able to get a dragon out of this and halt the stacking of the Tigers.
Hollow victory, but one you'll take. The second buff, as you mentioned, is no big boon, but denying the 5 stack of potentially 50 minutes into this game. Burst down quickly. both these teams have so much mobility, both offensively and defensively, that these team fights can turn on a split call. Both these teams instantly disengage and re-engage, depending on how the side waves were going, and Kuro being completely outmatched is what forced ROX to have to retreat.
Well, inhibitor back up now in mid for KT, so 2 naked inhibitors, 1 still protected by a turret.
Should just be categorically better reenactment of what we just saw, though, as the Baron buff means there should be happier times in both the top and bot lane push for ROX.
Yeah, but apparently Someday is capable of dueling Kuro down here, and he has started to take attack speed, reflex bow now, in addition to his Thorn Mail, so...
The recurve bow is going to maybe a Wit's End, maybe a Blade the Ruin King. Interesting.
Yeah, one would think Wit's End here, but we'll see. Blade would definitely not be a bad item. I like the choice of the offensive item to shut down some of this split push. Kuro now on the run into the mid lane. Smeb trying to take down this mid lane turret. Bray still poking with that Iceborne Gauntlet, and they are going to get this top inhibitor, and they're going to get mid at the same time. Kuro managed to get their first big minion wave, so now KT down 2 inhibs. We saw a comeback from this yesterday by Samsung. They managed to turtle long enough against Longzhu.
Worth knowing they, of course, had the Dragon ascendancy. They were always stacking towards a 5th. In this case, KT are behind in the Dragon stacking.
Very true, but they also still have the better team composition when it comes to some of these team fights that have been repulsing ROX with some efficiency, and Smeb's going to knock this Tahm Kench out and make sure his team gets the turret. Baron buff still up, Arrow about 50% HP, still trying to deal some damage to Smeb. True Shot Barrage once again swings wide.
So hard to get onto Prey. Alistair trying on headbutt duty. Some days, angular damage.
That's a big laser across 2 members. Good job on the binding, but is it going to be enough? Ajani now low is going to stop Prey in his tracks for the moment. Someday still trying to face tank most of this poke. He's going to get Smeb, spit back out, but there's the heroic charge, and they're going to get the kill onto Tahm Kench. Gorilla still at his ultimate up to provide the front line as his back line collapses onto Someday.
Really good use of the CC. It meant the Grey Health couldn't be popped. Tahm Kench dies.
And here we go. TP now into the mid lane. Is going to keep that up. Smeb immediately rooted. Well, Gorilla comes in. He's got no mana for any more abilities. And that's going to be a snipe on him. No ultimate. So they take down the support. But this last turret falling very low. Lots of super minions in the base. Score going to get hammered into the turret. Flashes away. Now we have the on the base, and that's going to be it. The Nexus falls in the end. ROX Tigers take game 1 in a shade under 40 minutes.
A game decided by 2 Barons, the first decisive one with double pink wards in the area. We talked on and on about the power of pink wards, but double pink wards meant that they stole out a Baron without even multiple members from the enemy dead. And from there, they basically kept on the pressure, even though the split push between, say for example, Tahm Kench and Twisted Fate was starting to look like it was creeping it towards KT. Second Baron decisively taken, and the game there for the ROX Tigers.
Absolutely, and KT looked like they were controlling it. They didn't fall too far behind, but that disastrous attempt onto Gorilla in the mid lane certainly caused them to fall at such a deficit that they were forced to sort of lose 2 Barons due to lack of mid lane pressure from losing both Tier 1 and Tier 2 turrets. And that was ultimately what gave the Tigers the edge in the end. So we'll see if perhaps they will make less of a foolish call in game number 2. But I like what we saw from the Tigers. More scaling that game, less of a early game blitz, and more about methodical poking and objective control.
Controlled pressure rather than just raw aggression, and played to a treat.
So we'll see who gets the MVP from game number 1. Remember, this is a best of 3, so we have more awesome action between these 2 teams in just a few minutes. Nofe in the booth right now with his team, and interesting adaptation. See how KT changes their draft in the next game. Fiora not even picked. Bit of a surprise, not banned either. Will that change in game number 2? We'll find out in just a few.